Hello everyone, I'm Tiffany and I went through 2 layoffs in a row and I want to talk about all of the red flags that I have personally experienced before the layoff happens so that hopefully you have a secure job now, are prepared for it when time comes. Whether you're in tech, marketing, finance, or really any industry, y'all know that no one is immune to layoffs. But the good news is that there are red flags that you can watch out for, signs that might tell you that a layoff is on the horizon before you get that calendar invite. You cannot avoid it, but you can feel it and get prepared for it. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. So let's talk about the top signals that could mean a layoff is coming and what you can do to stay prepared. All right, signal number 1, budgets get frozen. Big red flag that was seen both times of my layoffs is hiring suddenly stops, team travel is canceled, team offsite is pushed back indefinitely. For my role as a product researcher, that was the clearest sign for both of the layoffs. Thinking back, the first time was a bit more obvious because our entire team didn't get the tool renewal because finance team wasn't responding to our contract renewal request, and it was an obvious signal that we needed to prepare for a layoff. Second time was much less obvious because I was in a startup and I was on a product research team of 1 as the one and only lead. And I knew something was off because I was asked to do research without spending any money, like literally no budget, by getting friends and family of employees to participate in testing cycles. And I knew it was a red flag, and that's when I casually started looking and responding to recruiter messages. But I didn't recognize a sense of urgency there because that company has always kind of had all sorts of unconventional asks on how to get things done in a very scrappy way as a startup. But it was a sign that leadership is trying to conserve money, and oftentimes that's a prelude to workforce cuts. Next signal, projects start disappearing. Maybe priorities shift with no explanation. Maybe a major product suddenly gets killed off. When a company is preparing to shrink, they often reduce or consolidate efforts, and if your work is suddenly no longer strategic, that can be a worrying sign. For my personal experience, first layoff definitely showed signs of this because usually we were a part of strategic work, we were a part of impactful projects, and suddenly they wanted us to work on, quick top-down fixes, and all of the big bets work that we were working on got cut off in one day. The second layoff was not as obvious because the leadership never really let the team work on a lot of strategic work. A lot of the times the work was to extinguish crazy fires, and that's why it wasn't really obvious that a layoff was upcoming. For myself or other times with other team members, it was just there were no finances. If your company is publicly traded, check the latest earnings report. And if your company isn't public, then maybe listen to terms like restructuring, cost optimization, or focus on core operations, which means that we're tightening the belt and jobs may be cut. This is a really tough one, and unless you really, really understand the finances and in the weeds of it, it may be tough to recognize this part as a red flag because us leadership will never straight up tell you that they're struggling. They don't want you to know that the company is struggling. They don't want employees to panic. They want employees and all of the investors, all of the stakeholders to think that they're operating fine. And so for both times, all hands had leadership bragging about how well they're doing, how exciting of a time it is for that company. And it was really weird because leadership sounded too optimistic and excited while the big projects were being cut. And I think there was that discrepancy in that. It started feeling really fake, the way leadership was responding and acting and reacting to the current situation. Here's another really subtle one. Your role shifts without warning. Maybe you're reassigned, or maybe you're handed lower impact work, or maybe your responsibilities are getting quietly absorbed by others. This is exactly what happened to my second role. I told you a little bit about it, but I was asked to do QA work out of nowhere. I was asked to help out with project management. I was doing less of what I was hired to do, which was testing and research. And yeah, it was kind of annoying because I was like, what am I doing? I worked my butt off to wear all sorts of hats, but I really didn't recognize this as a red flag because I was working at a startup And leadership repeated multiple times that we needed to work flexibly and that we need to wear multiple hats to get things done, regardless of title. Sometimes companies do this to prepare for your exit. And this was a prime example of what the second company did to kind of almost let me know that my role is going to be eliminated. The next one, leadership goes quiet. Maybe your manager suddenly can't answer basic questions about next quarter. Maybe they can't answer questions about an uncertainty you've expressed. When communication stops flowing or gets kind of really, really vague, it could mean that decisions are being made behind closed doors, and that's not a good sign. This was the case for both of my layoffs. For my first layoff, I loved my manager in the first layoff, our first company that I got laid off from, because she was really transparent about all the things that were really vague and kind of apologized for being unable to answer some questions. And the second layoff, for example, was even more vague to really critical questions that we asked as a team. But they never knew the answers to our questions in general, usually, so we never really bothered to doubt it, honestly. Which is why the second layoff was even harder to predict for me. So what can you do if you start seeing these signals? So one of the things to do is to start updating your resume and LinkedIn immediately. Don't delay anything knowing that you have a job on the back pocket. If you see any of these signals, you're not going to lose anything by being prepared. Get your butt off and start feeling urgent and desperate. I think the lack of desperate feelings when you have a job in the back pocket, even though you know red flags are coming, is what prevents you from actually being prepared. You think, oh, it's gonna be okay for now, I have a job now, and then it hits the next day and you have no job, you have no income, and now I'm really fine to really desperate the next day. So you're not losing anything by being desperate too early on. Download any sort of performance reviews, any sort of wins, examples of your work, any like potential case study examples that you would want to collect beforehand. Because for my first example, I started feeling a little bit of a layoff coming, I had a little bit of a gut feeling. And so that's when I was able to start preparing, start applying, start looking at jobs. Second layoff, I had no idea. It was just so hands off there. And so when I got cut off that day, I had nothing. I could not save anything. Start building a list of recruiters and companies that you're interested in and start reaching out to your network. And like I said, I highly recommend don't wait until it's urgent, because once that becomes an urgent thing, you become desperate, you try to find something that is not right for you, and you get to this girl's position where you become desperate, you find anything and everything, and you get a huge pay cut and you end up in somewhere that you're gonna feel miserable in. And most importantly, you already know it, don't take it personally. Layoffs are usually about business, not your talent. And layoffs are obviously really hard. It's completely out of your control, out of our control, but purposefully putting yourself into that desperate position is, I think, what's really important these days, because you don't know when a layoff is coming, but when it does come, it's completely out of your control. It's not like the harder you work, the lower chance it's gonna have. But spotting these signs early on can give you the time and space to take control of your career. So get ready, get prepared, don't be caught off guard by this, and don't take it personally, is the advice that I've been hearing and the advice that was helpful for me. If you've experienced any of these signals at work, let me know. If there's anything else I'm missing, let others know. I would love to hear your story. But yeah, until next time, please take care of yourself and take care of other people around you. It's really not easy these days, but I hope you are all hanging in there and sending you good vibes. We got this.